Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is the place where we bring you the headlines and the latest in Black news, views, and opinions. I'm Brooke.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Debbie.
And I'm Melissa.
On today's report, Mike Brown's father and Ferguson Organizers request $20 million from Black Lives Matter. A judge delivers courtroom guidelines for the George Floyd justice trial against former police officer Derek Chauvin. And the House sets a vote for George Floyd police reform bill.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says their institution is not systemically racist. NAACP blasts the makeup of a New Jersey legal weed panel. South Carolina Senate adds firing squad, and find out why Capitol Police are beefing up their security this week.
Black celebrities show support for LGBTQ plus community in Ghana. We're remembering a reggae legend and find out why Dr. Seuss books are stirring up controversy.
Yes, we have all that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. Let's get it.
To me, this reeks of conflict of interest.
Do we know if he actually waved a gun? We only hear one side of the story.
This just really did make me feel good that the justice system did what they needed to.
We're going to keep following this story, and we will have the latest for you. Here are the headlines for the day. Mike Brown Sr. and Ferguson, Missouri community organizer Tony Russell want the Black Lives Matter organization to provide $20 million to continue their work. The two recently posted a video online that's getting a lot of attention. Russell co-founded the International Black Freedom Alliance, and Michael Brown Sr. is the father of Michael Brown, the teenager, of course, who was shot and killed by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson back in 2014. Russell and Brown are shown in the video standing next to each other, and the two are clarifying their mission and their reasoning for asking the organization to provide the additional funds. The video is part of a long Twitter thread, and I want to break down some of the things in the thread, okay? Brown says despite being a community figure who organizes, empowers, and supports other families in healing, he has only ever received $500 from any BLM-affiliated group since his son was killed. Now, this demand is, of course, in response to news of the Black Lives Matter organization getting more than $90 million in donations in response to the uprisings launched after the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and others. One of the arguments here is that Ferguson has been forgotten, even though essentially, you know, Ferguson was a big part of what launched the actual movement. And not only that, Brown's father says, hey, look, the organization uses my son's name. And so they're essentially saying you fundraised off of the back of my son's name, saying, you know, the organization even has an annual commemoration weekend for his son. So he feels it's only right that some of that money go back to the community where his son, you know, was tragically killed. And just in case you're interested, the two say they're going to spend this money on the Chosen for Change Foundation. That's the foundation for Mike Brown, the Mike Brown Community Center, and organizing grants for Ferguson protests and activist program and other services in the Black community, as well as their own annual August 9th commemorations.
Yeah, you're thinking about it being from St. Louis, right? We understand Trayvon Martin, what happened to him the year before that. That's what pushed the Black Lives Matter movement a couple years before that, sorry. But in 2014, with what happened with Mike Brown, it shook up St. Louis so badly. I was there in 2015 for about 10 months, so I seen how the city was destroyed, how people were so hurt, right? And they have the right to know where some of that money is going. I mean, $90 million, and he only got $500 does not add up no way possible. So I'm truly not happy with that situation, and I'm glad he's speaking out. We understand they got 3,000 people they're going to give grants to, right?
Yeah.
We know that's happening. I mentioned that on February 25th for Black Lives Matter, but more money should be in Ferguson, Missouri.
And you're right. I'm sorry, you're right, because, you know, I think Trayvon Martin's death opened everyone's eyes.
Right.
And then the protest after Michael Brown's death, I hadn't experienced that in my lifetime, in my, you know, adult lifetime.
Yeah.
And people were comparing it to, you know, Jesse Jackson's time and Al Sharpton, and that it was huge, right outside of your hometown neighborhood.
Yeah. You know, great point that you brought up, Romeo. I mean, full careers and lifestyles have been created off the backs of Mike Brown. I mean, that's a great point. Also, great point about the $90 million. My only thing is I feel like, you know, going back to what I was saying about BLM also cannot end their fiscal year at zero. So I feel like everyone is caught up on this $90 million, and $20 million is almost a third of what they made. And like you said, Romeo, too, they also have other charities and things like that, organizations that exist that also are important to the Black community. So I also feel like, yes, it's important for them to feel like they are, they should be able to get some of the money. But $20 million is just, I feel like that's asking for a lot.
Yeah, I mean, well, whenever somebody puts a number like that out there, it's always an inflated number. You know, usually two parties can come together and there's a settlement that, you know, that they come to an agreement on. The number is inflated in order to, you know, just indicate just the grievance that has been committed against Michael Brown Sr. He has an incredible point to what you said, Brooke. You know, watching the protests in Ferguson, that was the first time that I can remember, you know, that you know, it really harkened back to the civil rights movement of the 60s. And so, you know, this, besides Trayvon Martin, this really was the catalyst for BLM really getting, you know, the motor behind them, the battery in their back. So I think I think that he absolutely has like more than a leg to stand on with this case. All right. Well, moving on to the George Floyd trial. Only one member of George Floyd's family will be allowed to attend his high-profile murder trial in Minneapolis courtroom because of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, a judge ruled on Monday. The same restriction applies to the family of Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged with second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in Floyd's death. For each family, a different member can rotate through an in-court position with appropriate credentials, Hennepin County District Court Judge Peter Cahill wrote in a ruling. Floyd family attorneys Benjamin Crump and Antonio Romanucci said the family was disappointed by the ruling. This is predicted to be one of the most anticipated criminal trials in years, and it's set to begin on March 8th with jury selection. The trial will be broadcast live for those who are not able to attend. So Court TV is going to be broadcasting the trial, and I'm sure that, you know, everybody's going to be watching. In addition to the ruling, the trial judge also said, you know, following coronavirus restrictions, they've got to keep 6 feet apart. It bans any mask or article of clothing that contains any image, logo, letters, or numbers that are visible. So you won't be seeing any Black Lives Matter or George Floyd T-shirts. You won't be seeing anything like that in the courtroom because the judge has banned that. Another thing that I found to be really, really, really interesting was that prosecutors had originally sought to add third-degree murder charges against Chauvin, and Cahill dropped the initial charge late last year. But Chauvin was actually going to plead guilty to third-degree murder charges. And the reason why he didn't was that attorney William Barr rejected the deal.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about this. I think you were out that week, Melissa, because we talked about how it was shocking that William Barr didn't want to jump into that. But the reason that, because for people at home, once again, it make it confusing, there's a state murder charge. He wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, that the feds didn't come after him for federal civil rights charges. And William Barr was like, actually, we are staying out of this. It's way too soon. We're staying out of this. Bakari Sellers brought something to my attention that we should not refer to this as the George Floyd murder trial.
Right. That's another. That was another thing that I was going to correct.
We have to be very specific about that. This is the Derek Chauvin murder trial because George Floyd is not on trial. He passed away, and a lot of people would like him to be on trial. There are a lot of people out there, but he's not on trial, and I think we should be cognizant of that. Also, just quickly want to point out that a lot of other stories are coming out about Chauvin's time on the force. Another Black man named Jimmy Bostic actually told the Marshall Project about an arrest. He said securities had asked him to leave a food market. He didn't leave, and he was arrested by Chauvin. He said, the next thing I felt was arms just wrapped around my neck. I started telling him, let go. I'm having trouble breathing. I have asthma. I can't breathe. And this was back in 2016. And Chauvin, the arrest report for the incident, Chauvin wrote that he secured Bostic's neck head area with his hands.
Unbelievable.
So that's written in the report.
Yeah, I mean, you see the past history of it, right? And at the end of the day, there's room in the courtroom to allow the family. If it's going to be on TV, you only need one camera in there if that's what you're going to do. It shouldn't be filled with the press and things like that. So I'm hoping that they kind of change this before the trial starts. Not sure that it will happen, but people will be watching this like they watched the Rodney King trial, like they watched the O.J. Simpson trial. We're going to be watching this, seeing what the outcome's going to be.
Absolutely, Romeo. I don't understand how one person, that just seems so unfair. But we'll talk more about that. Actually, staying in topic, Representative Karen Bass stated today during a press conference about the sweeping police reform proposal that the House will vote on Thursday. I'm talking about the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. The bill, which was reintroduced last week by Bass and Judiciary Chair Gerald Nadler, is a top legislative priority for Democrats after it passed the House in a bipartisan vote in the last Congress, but it was never brought up in the Senate. Bass noted that Thursday's vote would come nearly 30 years to the day that Rodney King was brutally beaten by Los Angeles police. Still talking, of course, about George Floyd. And I mean, you know, like Romeo, just continuing on what you were saying, I mean, people will be stuck by their TVs. And I just can't believe that they're just going to have one family member. I'm really upset about that. But I wanted to add in here, so Minneapolis, they're installing barbed wire and concrete barriers around the courthouse where Derek Chauvin's trial is going to be. And also, they were saying that they're also installing barbed wire around the jails as well, just in case people want to riot or protest inside the jail. So they're like, it's going to be on the city's going to be on full lockdown everywhere.
Yeah, they're getting ready for that.
Yeah.
You know, Karen Bass, she actually just wrote an op-ed for USA Today, and she also tweeted in response to the op-ed, 30 years ago today, Rodney King was beaten by police in the middle of the street. When the video came out, we thought that we finally had the proof we needed to end police brutality. 30 years later, we are here yet again at a moral moment in our history. We must act. We must succeed. And then she goes on to talk a lot about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But it is not just to honor him. It's also to honor all of the unarmed people who have been brutalized or killed by police since his death, and many more who have been brutalized and killed prior to. I encourage everybody to read the op-ed in USA Today.
So the reason that, you know, even our elected officials are doing this is because of the people. The people made their voices heard. It wasn't simply because somebody died. It's because the people stood up and said, we're tired of this. And in Scientific American, they actually have a new study showing that killings by police actually declined after Black Lives Matter protests. So when people say, why are you out in the street? What does that do? Because it's working. Not only is it working and it's making your elected officials pay attention, but it's working in your neighborhoods. Because the study also found body camera use and community policing increased in places where they had the most active movements. So, you know, it works.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and just part of the bill, it introduces, you know, common sense reform, requiring police officer accreditation, promulgating best practices, maintaining a registry of officers dismissed for excessive use of force. In the case of Derek Chauvin, this would have worked out because he had a lengthy record of excessive force complaints against him. Many officers who are accused, you know, who have killed Black people or harmed Black people, you know, in the, you know, in the course of duty, they all have these excessive use of force complaints in their record. So that's what this, the Policing Act is going to bring attention to.
Yeah, that's true.